Everybody feel it, come around with the rhythm, this is how everybody get down when we give it to you. Everybody feel it, come around with the rhythm, this is how everybody get down.
Cool. And then we'll stop it when he's done. So no pressure, Matt. All right. So then I guess the first thing that we all keep seeing is that people are trying to start up and grow newsletters. What's the appeal of that right now?
I think the appeal is it's the best place to have an owned audience, something that you control, right? That you can push out a message to anytime you want. That's not restricted by a social platform. And so I think a lot of people are aware of just the limitations of social, like potential of ban, but also just the potential that you can't, like you have 10,000 followers, you're not going to reach all those with every message you send, right? In news, like basically there's two places where you can have an owned audience, maybe three. One would be like website direct traffic. Another one would be a podcast where people subscribe to your RSS feed. Another would be an app, which really is not attainable for 99% of founders or people out there. And the final one would be a newsletter. And I think the newsletter is probably the best place to build an owned audience out of all those four that are the possibilities. And so that's why I focus on it. That's why so many content creators and media companies who used to care about social following and social reach have now transitioned or focused on building and growing their newsletters rather than building a social audience, because it's just so much more valuable to have a newsletter subscriber versus a follower subscriber somewhere else, right?
That makes total sense to me. And what point do people usually engage with you?
A couple ways. So one, I write content. I have a newsletter about growing your newsletter. So that is, really designed for people who have 0 subscribers all the way up to 10,000 subscribers, maybe even higher. I think a lot of people who have millions of subscribers read that newsletter, but that's kind of the free do-it-yourself content. And then for my agency that do done-for-you services, we're usually working with newsletters that already have 50,000 to 100,000 subscribers most of the time.
We have a few stragglers here, so I'll let them in. All right, so if someone, I guess first off, maybe I should have set up a poll. I don't know how to do this, but maybe we can just, I'm going to take you off for 1 second. All right, maybe I can just see by a show of hands or comments, how many people here already have a newsletter set up?
Yeah, people could put like a 1 in the chat or just a yes in the chat if they do.
Put a 1 or a yes. That's a great idea.
I have a company one, but it's not like I don't know if that's in the same category.
Doesn't
I think that counts. That all this stuff will apply to that too. So we got 2 yeses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or no, great. 5 now.
I'm looking to build one.
Okay.
What does a company one mean, Greg? And why was that counted as the same as a newsletter?
I guess I don't know. I just make a distinction in my mind because I think there's like people who like make a lot of content because content's their thing, and ours is like announcements for our business and like stuff like that.
I see. Yeah, I have the same thing. I mean, I have 18,000 subscribers for my announcements for my product, but like I'm not using it as a newsletter, so I'm curious what that means.
Yeah, maybe we'll distinguish between an email list versus an editorial newsletter. And so what I'll focus on this call is like an editorial newsletter. So a company can have that, an individual can have that, but the content and the style is going to be different. And we'll talk about like what that is in a second, but we'll probably distinguish it that way versus just, it's going to be different than just product updates or sales. It's going to be more of a value add newsletter.
Makes sense. Okay. What was I going to ask? Is there anybody, if there's anyone here that wants Matt to look at their newsletter, maybe just comment in the chat as well, like show mine or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that'd be good. And we can you can share a link kind of as we go, and we'll come back to it later.
Yeah, put your link.
It's like, yeah. And I can just click on that link later. And also we can like go into a discussion about that. Maybe that would be, if you don't have any other kickoff questions, Michael, maybe that would be a good place to start, is just dive into, let's kind of break down some newsletters, give some people ideas. And like the ideas I share for one are going to apply to pretty much everybody, right? And so, okay, we'll start with the Copilot Digest. Cool. And this
this is me, Salil. I'm a huge fan of all the things you put out. Thank you for everything.
Oh, thank you. No, it's great to have you on, so we can dive into this. Okay, so what I would recommend everybody do is just click on this so they can see another tab, and it's going to give you a better idea of what I'm talking about here. because if I'm just talking and you're not seeing the newsletter, check that out. And then what I'm looking at right now is just the home page, which is usually a good place to start. And we can click on post within there.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Do you want to share your screen, Matt?
yeah, I can do that too. Let's see here. I just want to make sure I share.
Quick question, Matt.
Yeah.
And this is on Beehiiv?
Yes, this one is.
Okay.
I'm forgetting how to share my. I don't use Zoom a
Oh,
lot actually.
so
So I'm
there's
forgetting
a
how to share my.
There's a share screen button at the bottom.
How do I share just a window? I can share. Okay, here it is. Actually,
Yeah, when it
there-
comes up, you can pick that.
There it is. Okay, I didn't see that at first. Alrighty. Okay, so this is the Copilot, and then I'm going to ask you questions about it as we go. and so-
Absolutely.
yeah, just tell us like overall what is the newsletter about, and then who is it for? What's the niche or what's the ideal reader or customer for this or user for this?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the newsletter is an AI newsletter, but it distinguishes itself rather than showing a news roundup, which we do a little bit of it. It brings data. So what's happening in the space of AI? There's a bit of background feedback.
Okay, I'll mute while you're talking, but okay, that sounds
Sure.
good. That gives me a good description. And
Yeah, and the audience here is it's moved a little bit. So it's a 7-week-old newsletter. First few weeks I was focusing on founders and funders. Based on the people who are joining, I have a survey when people join, what basically who they are, and realize lots of tech enthusiasts are joining as well. So I would say tech enthusiasts who are either starting a company right now or are already running a company. I would say that's by far 70% of the people. And the audience breakdown, I would say, is 80% US, Canada, 20% UK, India, rest of the world.
okay, thank you. That info is great. So let's start with the content. So I'll check out one of the recent posts. How often do you send the newsletter? Is it once a week? I think you said once a week.
Once a week. Once a week, yeah.
Okay, that's good. And so what I like to look at before we get into the value prop of the newsletter and like newsletter growth is just what the content is. So that will inform how we talk about growth. So you have introduction section here, you have a rundown section here. I like using these sections so you create an open loop. So like this may not be a great example of what you cover here, but if you like highlight different things in your bulleted rundown section that talk about what you're going to cover within the newsletter, that's going to generate curiosity if people are going to read that or scroll down to that section to read that. So you want the intro section of your newsletter is really important, and you're doing a good job here having a separate section and covering all that stuff. So this is, I'm assuming this is kind of like the data-driven section where you're sharing the different numbers related to AI and startups.
That's right.
Cool. Last week's poll, and I won't cover each one of these like in super detail. We're just looking at a quick overview here. I like that you have interaction within the newsletter. That's a really smart thing to do, and a lot of top newsletters do this, including Morning Brew. Morning Brew uses things like quizzes and like questions and even like riddles sometimes, kind of like, you know, how the New York Times has like a crossword puzzle. Morning Brew has stuff like that within the newsletter. So you're kind of doing that here too, where you're asking like an interesting question and then you share the feedback in the next newsletter. So like, it's really smart to keep it interactive rather than just passive reading, right? So I like that idea too. Okay, we have a pop-up here to subscribe. And these are kind of weekly highlights about curated news about what's happening related to your audience. Is this a will this be like a product idea that people could create, or how would you describe this section?
Yeah, so it's just a product idea. Every week I share one product idea. At the bottom, there is again, like I would care about this product. I don't care about this product. People engage on that as well. So there's a quick poll at the bottom also. And this is also giving me a pulse. So I'm a builder at heart, build this newsletter. So it's also giving me a pulse of, you know, what people care about versus not.
Yeah, I like that. A lot of people are looking for business ideas, especially your audience, right? So I like that. And you get more feedback based off of this. And then the social buzz is like, this is just like curated content that you found interesting that week and you're sharing in the newsletter, I'm assuming, right?
That's right.
Okay, fun fact of the week. I like how you have a lot of curated content. Let's see here. And then you have a review, and then you have like a poll about what do you think of the newsletter overall, rating it on a 1 to 4. I like how you're utilizing polls. This is something people can learn from. I don't think they need to have 3 or 4 polls in a newsletter, although that could be great. But getting this type of feedback is so valuable, because when you send a newsletter it's not like sharing a tweet or an Instagram post or something. You're not going to get a ton of comments on it, right? You basically see who you sent it to, what's the open rate, what's the click-through rate. So getting some feedback on like a 5-star scale or a 4-star scale or a 1 out of 5, it helps inform what you write about, and also just keeps you motivated to write. So I recommend everybody have some type of poll like this in their newsletter, at least one. So I think this is really good. I just want to get a sense of it before I talk about the growth stuff, which is probably more exciting than just doing an overview of the content. So let me check out, really the core of newsletter growth comes down to your landing page. Very simple, but very overlooked, right? This looks really good right off the bat. And so the landing page is where you're going to drive all your traffic to, whether that's from an ad, from your social media post, in your profiles, except when someone shares your newsletter, people are going to see the landing page first. It's really how you get subscribers. It's the main way people are signing up for the newsletter. So it's really important to spend time on these details. And the difference between a landing page that converts at 25% and a landing page that converts at 50% is double the subscriber growth, right? And a lot of landing pages can very easily convert at 50% plus if they're done well. And off the bat, like I won't read every bit of copy in here, but it looks really good. Like you have a clear value proposition in the headline. This is something that's really important. A lot of people just say like what the name of the newsletter is, like the Copilot newsletter. You have a benefit focused headline here. You have social proof and authority in the subheadline. And so it's read by 8,000 plus executives from these prestigious companies. And so readers are going to see that if other people read it, especially from prestigious companies, I should probably consider this too, versus if you didn't have that, it wouldn't be as strong. It wouldn't be as strong as a landing page, right? And then you kind of explain what people are going to get at it. So latest AI developments, funding insights, business opportunities, etc. And then you have more benefits here. So say research published by McKinsey and MIT alum, which is you, and then testimonials. So this is really well done. This is one of the better landing pages I've seen recently. So there's not as much like feedback and constructive feedback I can give because I think you have all the right elements here. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
That's good. That's a good example too, because people can learn, like you're doing everything right. So people can learn from that as well. One thing I would consider removing is your featured post.
Okay.
And like you might have heard me talk about this before, but what I like to do on a landing page is just have everything focused on getting people either to subscribe or to leave. You're going to have a much higher conversion rate that way. What happens here is, a lot of people are going to get distracted. They'll click on one of these. This is interesting to them. They'll read this post and then they'll just forget to subscribe, right? So I would recommend removing this, and you can still have like a little link at the bottom that says like, let me read it first or read past post or something. So people, if they want to access that, they can, but it's going to be much smaller. It's going to have a much lower click-through rate than these posts. And that's really the key of landing pages is like, it's 90% of it's focused on subscribers, not directing people anywhere else. You just want to get that email address on your landing page.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, and then we'll jump to another topic or another newsletter in a second. But let's talk about how you're getting subscribers. Like, where are your subscribers coming from right now?
Yeah, so 3 places. I was running Twitter ads, and I was running like again, it's what do you call, like paid advertising. So Twitter paid advertising was costing me about $250 per sub. So CPA was $250 on Twitter. And recently I've been using Sparkloop, which has been doing well, and I'm getting about $1.50 on Sparkloop. So I'm doing these newsletter networks like Sparkloop, Beehiiv, Beehiiv Boost, Refined, and that's around, all of those around like the $1.50, $2 mark. Twitter was around $250. I didn't go down the Facebook path at all. It felt too complicated. And then the third thing is I have a referral piece built in here.
Matt knows our experience with Facebook was not great.
Yeah, it's a challenge. There's lots of small details you have to go over any ad platform, and so we can talk about those ad platforms too. But no, you really got your stuff together here. I think why don't we talk about paid acquisition first, because you mentioned a lot of different paid. Not everybody's even going to know what all those different things are. So we can kind of, I think a lot of people are going to know what Twitter ads are. They've seen Twitter ads before. Of course, they've seen Facebook ads. Those are some of the best paid acquisition sources for a newsletter. Your CPA was $250, which really isn't bad. Go ahead.
I think Terry.
Someone have a question?
Terry, do you have a question or was it just by accident? Maybe just put it in the chat if you have a question. Keep going.
Sounds good. And I'll jump back to the chat in a second. Okay, so how I think about getting subscribers for your newsletter, I think about kind of 3 different categories of where your subscribers come from. One is going to be your paid ads, so Twitter ads, Facebook ads. You mentioned Beehiiv Boost in the Sparkloop partner network. What those are basically affiliate marketplaces for newsletters. For people who know, it's basically a marketplace where you can list your newsletter and people can send you subscribers, or you can monetize your newsletter or website or whatever by sending subscribers to other newsletters, and people pay a fixed CPA. So in his case, it's a $1.50 per subscriber. And so that's your paid acquisition source. And that's one category, right? We can dive into that in a second. The second source is usually from social media. So Twitter, of course, you got a lot of followers on Twitter, LinkedIn. Those are the most common social platforms to build your newsletter on. And that's really because they're written platforms, and like people who read stuff on Twitter and LinkedIn are probably more likely to read a newsletter versus someone who watches a lot of TikTok videos. Not saying you can't build a newsletter from TikTok, but it's just more common to get newsletter subscribers from these platforms, right? Also, the topics seem to carry over. Like a lot of people write about AI on Twitter, and they write about AI in their newsletter too. So we have paid growth, we have social growth, and then the final one is email platform growth. And that's one I don't see you using. And I think that's one you could utilize here. So an example of that would be your referral program. And I don't think email platform growth is going to be your biggest category, but it can be a great source of growth too. So are you familiar with what a referral program is?
Yeah, so I have it. In fact, I disabled it on the web version of it. I hid that because on the web version, one, you might not be logged in, and it was messing up. The UI was messing up. I opened a ticket for Beehiiv guys. But if you actually go to a different newsletter, that might be even there. But if you receive my email, it is there. So I have a referral at 1, 5, and 15.
Okay, very smart. Yeah, that sounds great. And so we could potentially demo with that for people who don't know what that looks like, but it's basically actually this wouldn't be a good demo, but if you refer someone to subscribe to the Copilot, you get a reward, right? So that's how that works.
Just open the GPT-4 secrets reveal. In that newsletter, it worked fine, and the format is different actually in this one. So oh, sorry, I'm just experimenting constantly. So if this one, if you go down, is it there? It was there. I don't know.
And that's okay.
Sorry.
We don't need a visual. We don't need a visual demo. It's totally fine. I think we get a good idea of what that looks like, and I can show one later too if we need it. But yeah, if you look at if you just search referral program, like referral program Morning Brew the Hustle, that would be a good example of what this looks like. It's a great way to get subscribers on autopilot. So like you don't have to, run an ad or do a social post to get a subscriber. Your existing subscribers are sharing your newsletter. And so it probably won't be the majority of your growth, but it's a great growth source. Let me stop sharing my screen here and go back to the chat and kind of jump into a different newsletter, because we can talk all day about one newsletter, which is awesome, but I want to make sure we're getting to everybody's questions or anything else here.
I just want to touch base. How are you for time, Matt?
I'm good to the hour mark.
Okay. All right. We're going a little over we planned. I want to be respectful of your time. So courtside, I think is that the next one that someone posted, Andrew?
Yeah, courtside focus.
Cool.
And thank you, Matt. This was super helpful. And this is my first time talking to Matt, but literally we got Copilot from 0 to 8,000 just reading his newsletter. That's it. Like I started reading it in May, and that's how we got here. So thank you for everything, Matt.
And actually, one quick question.
Thank
you. So was your entire acquisition source, like all 8,000 were paid?
No. That would be too expensive. The first couple of thousand wasn't. The first couple of thousand, I would say maybe 4,000 or 5,000 is paid. 3,000, 3,500, even maybe more. Maybe 3,000 to 5,000 might be paid. And the thing with Sparkloop is it's running right now, so you can set up rules. So we don't even know how many of those will meet those criteria in 2-week window. So I would say let's call it half at this point.
So we ran Boost initially with Beehiiv, Matt, and we had a real problem with getting it to convert. Like I think I have a credit sitting on my account like $2,500, where it's like they gave me all the money back. Now I stripped out all the email before that happened, so I have them. But then we tried Sparkloop, which was actually pretty good. And we've been running on Refined, which is another one, and Refined has been converting like $1.50, $1.70 as well. So that's been really positive. Obviously, and then my other question would be, have you figured out monetization yet with such a big audience?
Question for me?
Yeah.
No, and that's actually the question I came in with to talk to Matt or ask Matt for a few different monetization options, right? So in the newsletter world, with the AI tech space, I think typical ads are $20 CPM, which is you can charge $20 for every 1,000 opens.
Yeah.
We have about 40% open rate, so 3,500, 4,000 open, so we can charge $80 per ad slot roughly. But I'm trying to see if there are other higher ticket options we can hit versus trying to do $80-$100 per link. That seems a lot of work. So I have a question. I can ask that question, or I can hold on to it before till the end. So you guys decide.
Why don't we let's go ahead and talk about that. Let's talk about monetization. We'll come back to growth for the other newsletters and just in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about. I'll just answer that question or what I think you should do for monetization. Would that be good?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's tough because newsletter sponsorships are priced off of CPMs, as you just explained. So that's the cost per 1,000 impressions. And in this case, open as an impression, right? The CPMs have gone down a lot in the past year as the advertising economy has gone down, maybe the past 2 years now. And so newsletters, they used to see like a $50 or $70 CPM might see like a 25 to 50. And then in your space, which is the AI niche, it's super competitive. There's lots of other newsletters. So CPMs have come down even more because there's a lot of options for advertisers to buy on. So it's really tough to make a significant amount from a sponsorship when you have 8,000 subscribers, which is a lot of subscribers, but there's a lot of AI newsletters with many more.
Exactly.
So I don't think the sponsorship business model is a great way to build a business around, right? And I've talked to Austin Reef from Morning Brew a couple of times about this, and he's like, if newsletters starting the day really need to have a different way to monetize. And so let's talk about what that could be. Not saying you shouldn't do sponsorships, but that's going to be more of like your pocket change, and there's going to be something else that's going to be a primary revenue driver. Affiliates is another one that's kind of pocket change money to kind of help you keep motivated and get you momentum. That might even be more lucrative than sponsorships in some cases if you find that right affiliate offer, whether that's an AI tool or another newsletter you can promote with Sparkloop, and you can make $2 or $3 per subscriber that you send to them. So I would consider that too, to kind of keep momentum. I think monetization really depends on what the audience is. And so one of the most common ways is with some type of information-based product. So online courses are super common, paid newsletters, paid communities, masterminds. I can go down the list of different types of information-based products that people can sell. That's one of the most common ways to monetize a newsletter, and probably one of the best. Doesn't mean it's easy by any means, but that's something I would look into. And you really need to figure out where your audience needs help and where you have a unique perspective on information you can create to help them, right? So that's what I would consider information-based products. I like courses probably the most out of those. And then the other is basically services and coaching. So not as scalable, but still really meaningful. And you can scale with a team over time. And that's kind of what I've built my newsletter around, whether that's like a productized service, a agency, coaching or consulting calls, something where you're doing a done for you service or a done with you service that helps your audience. That's another great way. And you can get, almost unlimited inbound leads from your newsletter to that service. Whereas a lot of people trying to grow a service-based business, they have to do cold email constantly to get any clients. So those are the two categories I would think about as far as where you monetize.
Got it. Perfect.
Awesome. I want to dive into courtside focus real quick and just give a few other examples here and just talk some more newsletter growth tactics, right? Let me share my screen real quick. And I forget whose newsletter this is. So if you could just
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Fine,
Awesome.
Andrew. Yeah.
Awesome. I think I might have seen this before. I think might have seen
Yeah,
everybody's
we
newsletter
spoke
before briefly.
right when I was just about to start it up. So
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And so just tell us what your newsletter about, what is your newsletter about and who's it for?
yeah, so my newsletter is about the business behind sports, and it's for sports enthusiasts, sports executives, people in the sports profession, all that good stuff. So it's a little bit for everyone that just enjoys sports.
Okay. And you got started pretty recently. So like how many subscribers are you at now? What's the open rate around now?
Pull it up exactly. So I've actually been doing some paid ads on Facebook and Twitter, as well as some organic growth methods, but I am currently at, hold on, my Beehiiv is loading pretty slowly.
Yeah, no rush. I'm checking this out in the meantime. And why you do this, I think, both the newsletters we're looking at so far are really well done. I think we got to dive deeper into what growth tactics and what monetization tactics they need, because I think you've got the landing page, the value prop of this. I haven't dived into the content yet, but like if your landing page and your value prop is there, you can create the content around this. So this looks really good off the bat. I wouldn't have any changes to your landing page. To check out, so you're like one of the most recent posts here. And feel free to interrupt me anytime with like the numbers when you find those. But I'm just gonna do a quick overview of this. So we have the same intro section, a rundown of what's going on. I really like the borders that you're using. I gotta do more of these. You have custom dividers. This looks good. This isn't, I didn't know this was a thing. This data is really interesting. Like anytime you can include recent data in a newsletter every day, that's a smart move. You've seen like the Milk Road and Morning Brew, they have charts of what's happening in the crypto markets or the stock markets. So it's cool that you have this. I think this is a smart idea.
Right.
And then is this kind of your brief style story where you have
Exactly.
Yeah. Recent story, kind of short, under 300 words, and then you have around the leagues, like curated content from around
Yep.
the different leagues. Oh, this is cool. Around those, so you have each like major league here. And then another brief story. This is really well done. Awesome. This is great. And then you have kind of like a sign-off section, follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. You have a is this like a quiz here or like what?
Like a little poll for a giveaway.
So can you click it?
Cool.
Is that how that works? Or how does that?
Yeah, so pretty much it's just a poll on Beehiiv, and the readers will just answer, and if they answer correctly, they're pretty much entered into a giveaway for a jersey. I do one weekly.
Oh, so you just made like emojis as the
Answer choices. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got some really smart people in this room. Yeah, I love this interactive stuff. Another like cool example of this I've seen is from Inverse, where they have basically like a recurring giveaway every month, and there's like different tiers of it, and you get entered to win a tier. You get into a tier if you have a certain amount of opens per month. So if you have, let's say they send 4 newsletters a month, if you open all 4, you get entered to win like a MacBook. If you open 3 out of 4, you get entered to win like AirPods or something, and then like lower prizes for lower opens. And so there's lots of cool different ideas you can do around engaging with polls, opening, all types of stuff. So we got to get creative with things. And then you have the final poll that kind of explains, you ask for overall feedback. So this is awesome. Let's talk about, do you know your subscriber number now?
Yeah, so I'm at 1853 subscribers, and I'm at a 57% open rate.
Okay, that's good. And so people should know what benchmarks I recommend for what your open rate should be and what your click-through rate should be. So like we talked before, so you know my benchmarks, but
yeah,
I recommend people aim for a 50% or above unique open rate and a 10% or above unique click-through rate. That's very high, and people kind of feel that's higher than average, but like I think that makes sense, especially because of the way analytics are now, and a lot of people have opens that aren't real opens. So that's what I would recommend. It doesn't mean a 40% is bad, or even a 35% is bad, but that's just the benchmark I would shoot for. So let's talk about growth. Where are you getting those subscribers from right now? Those subscribers from currently?
I'm using 2 methods: Facebook, Twitter, and then my organic method is Reddit. Yeah.
I've not.
So those are Facebook and Twitter ads, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And on Reddit.
Yeah, so this was actually from Matt himself. He actually featured, I forgot the person's name, but he featured him in Matt's newsletter about his Reddit strategy and what he does. And it's basically just creating posts, taking things from my newsletter, putting them on Reddit, and at the little end, I'll have a little verbiage saying, hey, by the way, I write weekly about this on my newsletter. Check it out. Like very subtle, I don't want to make it sound too spammy, but yeah, it's been something I've been doing pretty hardcore, and it's been working. So
that's great.
Yeah.
And here's the post on that if anybody wants to check that out. It wasn't not even my strategy, but something I learned from Eric. Okay, sounds good. What are your costs on Facebook and Twitter looking like for what you're paying per subscriber?
So that's kind of tough because I do have Spark Loop, but I'll just give you my Facebook numbers.
Yeah, let me know those. And then you have, by Spark Loop, do you mean, when I go and sign up on the landing page,
You should. Yes.
So Spark Club Upscribe comes up. And so people who don't know what this is like a pop-up widget. And so if I were to click subscribe now and subscribe to these 2 newsletters as well, Andrew would get, $1 or $2, or maybe actually $2 or $3 for each of these newsletters that he would make as a commission, as a affiliate commission. And if I choose not to subscribe, he wouldn't make anything. I will subscribe to one for you, so you get a couple. And then we're to redirect it to his thank you page. So that's a great way to monetize your newsletter as you get subscribers, right? So, do you know what that Facebook CPA looks like, or that Twitter CPA looks like?
For Facebook.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
$2.43 per subscriber on Facebook.
Okay, not bad at all. I think we can get that lower.
For
And
sure.
ideally, like we talked about last time, we want your Facebook CPA to be at or below your earnings per subscriber from Upscribe. And so if you earn $2 per subscriber from Upscribe, or maybe $1.50, you want to be able to get you a subscriber for less than that. So then now you can have a break even. Now they can have an acquisition cost that's break even. So you get a subscriber for free and are able to monetize them from there.
Yeah, no, I just recently implemented Upscribe, and it's been working really good. So yeah, I'm working on getting that CPA low so I can, just break even or even just profit at that point. So
that's good. I saw you're recommending 2 newsletters. I would add more to that, and I wouldn't be afraid to recommend newsletters that aren't sports newsletters. I mean, you're a business newsletter too, so you can recommend other business newsletters, and your earnings per subscriber should go up.
Okay, that's a great pointer, because I was actually really curious about that too. If that would be a problem if I'm just recommending, just plain business newsletters. So
yeah, go for it. As long as you think the newsletter you're recommending is worth reading. I just wouldn't recommend anything you wouldn't actually recommend yourself. And so I think that's how I think about it. And if you want to maximize your earnings from SparkClip, you want to recommend 5 newsletters. And actually probably have more. You'll have 5 at a time, but we probably want to have more on your list. So SparkClip can filter in ones based off of their algorithm so you can earn the most.
Right.
Another thing I want to point out is Andrew's thank you page. This is really important for your newsletter. This is essentially your first impression. So that's the thing people see immediately after they subscribe is going to be their first impression of you. And if this is done well, it's going to increase your open rate, your click-through rate. It's going to increase the affinity of your subscribers. It's going to get you more purchases and more customers. So take your time on the details of your thank you page. I have a guide on thank you pages here, which I'll send later. But this is really important. I didn't get to read all of this, of course, but it looks really good overall. So you kind of explain who this is for, what people are going to get, what to expect, when the newsletter is going to be sent every Monday morning, and then what it includes. And it's also really important to tell people to check their inbox for your welcome email and move it to their primary inbox. That's really key when it comes to growing your newsletter. A lot of your newsletters initially are going to be sent to promotions or sometimes even spam. And so you want to have this type of messaging on your thank you page and your welcome email too. Yeah, this is great. Any other questions, Andrew, that you have for me that we should cover?
I just really wanted to get your feedback on like the newsletter itself, but it seemed like you kind of liked it. Because I just wanted to make sure, I had, the correct formatting and stuff like that, like with the little sections and all that with Beehiiv, because that's pretty new to me. But it seems like, that turns out great.
It's good. I think you need to figure out subscriber growth right now. I think that's the step you're in. I think you got the content in the website figured out really well. We got to figure out how to get you more subscribers quickly. And so you're on the right, you're just getting started. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but you're on the right track here.
Perfect.
I think Facebook ads are good. Twitter ads are good. Those are good ad platforms. I'm curious how well Reddit is doing so far. I think Reddit can be a great strategy. I don't know if that's going to get you tens of thousands of subscribers over time, but it might be a great way to get your first 10,000 subscribers.
I agree. Yeah. So I'm just going to, as long as I'm staying consistent with that, that's the goal. So thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Do you have a personal Twitter account you're posting from?
No, it's just, I'm using that, just the Courtside Focus.
Yeah. I mean, I would keep using the Courtside Focus account.
Really new. The Twitter is really, really new.
Yeah. Then that's totally fine. What I would do is basically make a personal account or use your existing one and just brand yourself as like the founder of Courtside Focus and brand your account around the newsletter and the benefits of it.
Okay.
And then start publishing more threads on Twitter related to your newsletter content. So you're writing like 2 briefs in every newsletter. You're sharing a bunch of curated content.
Yeah.
Like share that same stuff as Twitter threads and as tweets and as like infographics and images. Like you're going to get a lot of subscribers that way too.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that pointer.
Okay, Michael, anything we should want to jump into now or groups or questions? What are you thinking?
Well, I guess that's, yeah, great question. Does anybody have any other questions for Matt, even if they don't have a newsletter review?
Yeah, why don't you start? I'm gonna screw up your name, but go ahead and Majid. I don't know. How do you say that? How do you,
I always screw his name up too. What the hell's wrong with that?
Yeah.
You can call me MJ. It's easier.
MJ, there we go.
sounds-
There you go. So I run a B2B startup, and I was wondering how would newsletter help a B2B startup versus B2C or other startups?
yeah, I think it can make sense as part as your.
Sorry,
Sorry, go ahead.
MJ, can you tell him your vertical?
So we are in the restaurant space. We basically help restaurants turn their downtime into prime time.
Very cool. Can you share a link to your startup website in the chat?
Sure. One sec.
Cool. So, I mean, that will help inform like what I say here. So I think you need to think about your newsletter as content marketing. And so there's lots of successful B2B companies that have blog, SEO strategy, social strategy, YouTube strategy. And so a newsletter can be the same type of strategy. It's going to get people to subscribe. It's going to be like your top of funnel, right? So it's going to build top of funnel interest as well as trust with an audience. And then you can turn that audience into customers for your startup. And so that's how I would think about it. Just like, HubSpot's been amazing at SEO, and they have a blog with that has more traffic than some of the largest media companies out there. A newsletter could kind of serve that same purpose for you. And also you can kind of have your newsletter and blog together. And that's kind of how I recommend it these days, is like, don't just have a blog, but have a newsletter and a blog, and the content can be very similar. Okay. And so who would be the ideal customer for your startup? Is that a restaurant owner or somebody else?
So we target restaurant owners, and we target on the demand side, the office managers at companies that order food for their teams. Office managers, executive assistants, HR, operations managers, like basically the decision makers when it comes to ordering food. Catering manager.
Got it. Okay, I understand. And so if I were going to have a newsletter for your company, I would have a newsletter basically about the business of restaurants or the business of food. And there already are existing media companies and newsletters about this that are very successful. And so I would cover that in the newsletter. I would generate I would get subscribers for that. And then within every newsletter and within your welcome email and your email sequence, you would have kind of ads or promotional spots for your startup where people can click to sign up for that and become a customer there. Or there might be other conversion mechanisms, like you might have a lead magnet, you might have a webinar you direct those newsletter subscribers to. And so if you look at, are you familiar with Food Dive? I believe that's one of the larger newsletters in this space.
Food Dive, no.
Yeah, I'll send you a link right now. So this is a newsletter from Industry Dive, which is probably the largest B2B media company in the world. I think they recently sold for over 500 million.
Oh, wow.
About a year ago. And basically, yeah, this is just a newsletter in a blog and a media company about the business of food. It's a little bit more broad than what we were talking about. So I would recommend going nicher and focusing on what your ideal customer cares about, which is the business of restaurants. So it would be even more niche than this, but still really valuable.
To give you some context, getting restaurants for us, like restaurant acquisition, is the lesser concern because we're not after a huge supply of restaurants, we're not supply constrained because we curate menus, so we don't need to work with tons of restaurants, unlike Uber Eats and DoorDash and whatnot.
Okay.
We're more focused on attracting more corporate accounts.
Got it. Understand. And so, I'll tell you about the newsletter strategy, but like take it with a grain of salt because it's not the best top of funnel strategy for every B2B company out there, right? So if there's a topic that audience cares about, those corporate accounts care about, I would write about that, right? And so you could write about the business of food or restaurants with that ideal customer in mind. So every article or every post you read and every bit of content you share has that customer in mind, and it has information that's most relevant to them. So it wouldn't be as relevant to like the mom and pop restaurant owner, although they still might find it useful, but it's going to be targeted towards your ideal person. I don't know a ton about what that person is or what that content would look like, but that's how I would think about it. We could talk about some of the specifics of like what tools to use, what type of templates and content formats to use, and how to get subscribers. Would that be good?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and I think Andrew did a great job with his templates. So he would be a good person to look at. And also Andrew's taken a ton of inspiration from Morning Brew and The Hustle. And that's what I recommend you do as well, is don't try and start from scratch or reinvent the wheel. Look at some of the top newsletters out there. They could be covering any topic. It doesn't have to be just food and business, right? Any topic, and look at the templates and formats and strategies they use and bring that over to your niche, right? And so what I would recommend you do is check out this right here. This is a post about the 10 best types of newsletter templates and formats. And I won't share my screen here, but it's going to cover a bunch of different examples from Morning Brew, 1440, Front Office Sports, and many more. And it covers like 10 different types of templates. One is going to be the first and most common one is what Andrew does. It's called the brief style template, or briefs and bullets. And it's basically, let me actually share my screen here and show you. Every newsletter will have one brief, which is a story like this that is about 250 words, maybe 300 words max. And then you usually have between 1 and 3 briefs, which is a story about what happened that week or what happened that day related to your industry and your customer. And then it will have bullets, which is a bulleted section of more curated news. And so, with those 3 briefs, you're not going to be able to cover everything that happened that week or that day. The snippet section, the bullet section, is a place to cover more of those news and link to relevant sources that your industry would know about. So you might read Food Dive and link to their stories in this bulleted section. And it's going to be a place to kind of stay up to date on everything they need to know within one newsletter per week or one newsletter per day, however often you decide to do it. So we won't dive too much into that because there's like so much we can talk about as far as what newsletter template you should have, but that's a start at least to look at.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
Yeah, sorry.
So I have a couple of questions, Matt. One, you mentioned about the open rates, right? So Copilot open rates are about 41%. I would love to push them up, but last month or so, the focus was get subscribers. Would you recommend purging people who haven't opened? How to think about that?
Yeah, I would. And you're really just getting started, so you may not have a lot to purge yet because it hasn't been very long. But usually between 60 days and 120 days, if someone hasn't opened or clicked an email, you want to stop sending to them. And so I give that range because you can be more or less aggressive. If you want to focus more on list size, you can do 120 days. If you want to focus more on open rate, you can do 60 days. And so you kind of maybe have a calendar reminder every month to do that and make that segment Beehiiv and remove those people. Another thing I would recommend for you is you say you're using Sparkloop and Beehiiv Boost to grow a lot. I think there's lots of cons to that platform because they're co-registration, right? And so we demoed it earlier. When someone signs up for one newsletter, they can recommend your newsletter. And some people will sign up accidentally, right? And also they don't get a lot of context in a newsletter. They just see, here's the name of the newsletter, here's a 1-line description. And so those subscribers are going to be lower quality than from someone who came from a Twitter thread or a tweet or like a webinar or something, or even from a Facebook ad. And so on the paid side, I prefer to monetize newsletters with Sparkloop and pay Facebook to get subscribers, because I can have an ad just dedicated to that newsletter, and that will bring in higher quality subscribers. And the CPAs can still be really good, because if your CPA is $250 on Twitter, but you can get a dollar or two from Sparkloop, now you have a much lower CPA. And so it's challenging to do Facebook ads and Twitter ads. It's more work than Sparkloop. But if you can, I would switch it up and use Facebook to grow, Sparkloop to monetize, rather than what you're doing now.
Super helpful.
Or Twitter too. I say Facebook and Twitter ads interchangeably. They're both good platforms, right? Obviously,
do you have a preference between Twitter and Facebook? I know it depends on the audience, but like technology AI audience probably sits in both places. If you had to pick, which one would you pick?
Facebook ads is better, but not for everybody. I think there's some topics on Twitter where Twitter ads can be really successful. AI is one of them. Startups is another one. Sports is another one. But we have a newsletter about like lifestyle or something, or we have some clients that just don't have any success at all with Twitter ads, and we have some clients that do really well. So I think for you it's good, but not for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Anything else we should cover? Any other questions?
That seems like a no so far. Matt, first of all, apologize. I cut you off a couple times because I'm not used to someone who's so proficient at managing the room. So that was great. First of all, thank you so much also for joining us. This was really, really helpful to me, and I appreciate everyone that shared their newsletter. And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, Matt? And what's a good call to action for you?
Yeah, I sent my Facebook ads course in the chat there. That's going to be helpful for some people. I would just, everyone who's really serious about a newsletter, and this is going to be a plug for me, but I'm going to plug someone else too, should basically read every post here. I don't say that like braggingly, but like there's not a lot of content about newsletters out on there online. So you really need to read everything. There's not a lot there. There's only about 10 or 15 posts I've done. And then everyone should also read everything on growthandreverse.com too. Which is not my stuff. This is from Chanel, but she does amazing deep dives on newsletters and creators. And so I think if you, that's some homework for you, but like if people do that, they're going to be ahead of 99% of people trying to grow an audience online if they do those two things.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Actually, I have one more question. If you have a few more minutes, is that okay?
Yeah, let's get into it. Yeah, we'll do a quick one.
So thank you. So you mentioned that, for especially Copilot, knowing the frequency I'm sending once a week, the niche I'm in, advertising might not be the best way to monetize, like advertising for other, even if it's pocket change or, additional fuel to spur the growth. How would you approach it? Like, I haven't done any outreach to advertisers. How would you even start?
Yeah, I would basically do two things. So I would go ahead and try and use your inbound audience. So I would have kind of a call to action on your website in your newsletter that just says like you're accepting sponsors, like click here to learn more about sponsoring the newsletter. And then you want to build a sponsor page that has some more information about your audience in your newsletter and what the sponsorship costs are and where they can get in touch with you or book a sponsorship. So just have that page. I have examples of what that looks like on my website. Have that page, promote it to your audience, publish it on Twitter, on LinkedIn, just to let people, like you'll get some interest that way first before you even have to reach out to anybody. So that's your inbound marketing for sponsorships. Your outbound marketing for sponsorships is just going to the top AI newsletters, seeing who those advertisers are, finding who the marketing people of that company are and sending them an email about your newsletter and pitching them and sharing that information too. So that's basically the two ways to get sponsors.
Got it.
I'll mention.
Yeah, go ahead, Sydney.
Hey Matt, I'm just totally, I got with Mike. Like this is day one newsletter for me. So what do you think is the first step for just day one total? This is foreign language to me. So what's a good place to start at?
Yeah, so when you subscribe to my newsletter, I have a welcome sequence that directs you to the most important things to read first, like where to start. You know what I mean?
Is that growthandreverse.com, this one?
That is that's not mine. Mine is newsletteroperator.com.
Okay, I'm about to apply to it right now. Okay.
Yeah, so do that. And then within 24 hours, I'll send you a couple of emails about what to read first. And you'll see a post about how to get, one of the posts I'm going to share is how to get your first 1,000 subscribers. And that will be relevant to you. And there's a few other ones I'll share too. And so I would read those. And then Growth in Reverse, I'll actually just share the archive, because when I shared the landing page, you don't see the archive. This is basically one of the best ways to learn with case studies, right? How did someone else grow their newsletter from 0 to 100,000 subscribers? And so this is what that is. And so I would go and just read whatever these are most interesting to you. Like if you want to build a newsletter about personal development, check out Sahil Bloom. If you want to build something about technology, check out Zane Khan. Different case studies in here you can read and see how they did it. And then find those common patterns that work for multiple different people and apply that to your newsletter.
All right, cool. Thank you.
I also, let me send one more thing real quick. So I sent my Facebook ad course. Let me send the Beehiiv growth course. All this is it's good content, but I just put it in the spreadsheet just so I can make it quickly. So click on that link and bookmark that too. This is also this is very targeted for people who have 0 subscribers and they want to get their first 1,000 subscribers. So this course is what that is for.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Try not to cut anybody off this time. And what we'll do is I've opened these up. I'll double check with Matt that I have all the links and I'll email them out to everybody afterwards. I'll mention 2 things before Matt goes. One is we're launching our data platform, and in the marketplace, I forgot we have I think it's 6,000 there's one list that you can buy, and we'll chunk it down so it's smaller, but you can buy a list of 6,000 people that sponsor newsletters and podcasts. And I think what we'll do is we'll split it out by even vertical, so that that's an option. I'll make sure everybody has access to see that. Yeah, there's something else I was going to tell them, but I forget. All right, so we've got your Facebook course, we've got the newsletter operator, and the growth in reverse, and then the Beehiiv course. I think that's the 4, right?
Yeah, those are the 4. That's it.
Amazing. Matt, is there anything else we didn't touch on that you want to make sure we want to wrap with on your end?
No, thanks for taking the time to come, everybody, and spending time with us. So this is really cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt.
All right, so
Thank you, Michael.
Everybody feel it, come around with the rhythm. This is how everybody get down.